We're coming to you live from Chatterbox Studios in downtown Memphis with executive speakers on speakers. Here we discuss and learn some of the cutting-edge ideas and trends in the world today from some of the top thought leaders in their fields. We've got Beth Thomas on the phone with us today talking about how to be happy at work in your life. I'm Stephen Kirkpatrick. Producer Bob is here with me. Stay tuned because you just might learn something. So Beth Thomas is one of corporate America's foremost authorities on employee engagement and change management. As Sequent's Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Consulting Services, Beth is responsible for the overall success of the consulting practice. She authored her own book, Powered by Happy, which is available on Amazon.com. It's the secrets on how to get and stay happy at work. You can also find out more information about her on our website, www.executivespeakers.com/Beth Thomas. We're going to roll right into the interview with Beth. Looking forward to it. We are so excited about having Beth Thomas on the phone with us. As mentioned before, Beth is the Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Consulting Services at Sequent. Beth lives in Columbus, Ohio. She is also the author of her very own book, Powered by Happy, How to Get Happy and Stay Happy at Work. Beth, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We are so excited for you to be here and for you to talk to our listeners about a topic that I know everyone wants to know more about and hear more about, how to be happy at work. But really quick, I heard you just got back from vacation.
Oh, I did. And let me tell you, the struggle is real. Coming back from Aruba to 21-degree weather in Columbus, Ohio was really tough. We only had flip-flops and short-sleeve shirts and let's just say it was tough coming home.
So, Beth, I have to ask you a question. Why did you come home? Why did you leave?
Yeah, right. You know, it's funny. I actually talked to a few of the folks down there that were running the bars and the restaurants that we were in, and even applied for a few jobs. But I didn't hear back by the time I left, so I really couldn't make it happen. But even running a lemonade stand, I would be like the hut girl at one of the resorts where you get chairs ready. I mean, it really is heaven on earth, Aruba. It's 95, 90 and sunny every day with a light breeze. It's guaranteed wonderful weather. It really makes me happy. And one of the reasons I went there is its tagline is One Happy Island. So I figured, writing a book about happiness, I would be the perfect person to buy a timeshare and spend quality time there. Don't you agree?
I agree. Hold on. I've got to ask you a quick question about this timeshare. Now, we've all heard the horror stories about how these timeshare salesmen will lock you in a room until you sign on for a timeshare. Was that your experience with them?
No, actually, quite the opposite. And, this is part and parcel, some of the tips I give out of my book. I went and asked my boss as a bonus to give me a timeshare.
Oh, there you go.
Instead of a bonus. So I didn't even have to sit through anything. It was awesome.
Hey, you know what? Kudos to you for asking for a timeshare.
Right.
I think that
right
there. So I think if people listen to the first 2 or 3 minutes of this, they'll say, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to go ask my boss for a timeshare. How great.
Oh, well, you know what? If we brought him on the phone with us, he would tell you all the things that I've asked for, all unconventional things. And you know what? He's been gracious enough to give me just about all of them. So I'm going to keep going with that. Well, I'm going to keep going, and, who knows what's next.
Well, that's awesome. And like I said, we would definitely let us know what is next in your mind about unconventional things. So listen, I think that we've got a good, solid foundation here to talk about happiness at work. Give us the background on what made you start wanting to talk to people about how to be happy at work. Where did you see the need?
It's really interesting because a couple different things. I was a practitioner most of my career before I went to the dark side of consulting. And, I was working at Limited Inc., which supported 12 wonderful brands like Victoria's Secret and Bath & Body and Express and Abercrombie & Fitch. And I was responsible for the organization's learning and development and change management department that supported all the brands. And I was asked to speak all the time because the work that my team was doing was considered kind of best of breed. And kind of best practice, and we became kind of very credible nationwide. So I was on a lot of different panels and conferences, and I even went to organizations like Dell and the CIA to talk about, what we were doing that was so wonderful and getting previewed in many magazines. And interestingly enough, I was at a conference speaking to women in leadership, which I absolutely love. There was standing room only, people sitting on the floor outside actually outside the door, sitting and listening, and an editor experienced that, and he came up afterward and he said, Beth, honestly, he said, you have like a following. He said, everywhere you go, it's like you could be talking to hundreds of people, but you make them feel like they're in your living room. And he said, you just appear to have it all, and you seem so happy, and women want that. Can you see yourself writing a book on that? And I looked at him and I said, after being a contributing author to 4 other books on learning and development, I looked at him and I said, now that I can write about. That is something that I absolutely feel like I'm a credible, self-proclaimed expert in happiness. And that started the book, which then turned into speaking engagements about happiness.
Got you. Okay. Obvious question. You've got Victoria's Secret, you've got Dell, you've got CIA. I would say those are 3 different companies with 3 very different missions as far as what they are trying to do. So the obvious question is, are there similarities about happy at work? Are there some techniques that are universal that people can take in? Or is it going to be different depending upon the kind of company that you work in?
I think it's different based on the kind of company and the culture that they are trying to achieve. Some cultures have very mature cultures. Some cultures are very entrepreneurial. Some cultures are very young, and the millennials, and, a very different style of work that the baby boomers had. So one of the things that I've found out, and I do this with speaking, and I've done it as my years in corporate training, you really have to understand the audience that you're trying to speak to and that you're trying to help. You want to understand their pain, what their expectations are, and as a speaker, you try to achieve that. So I have to be a little bit of a chameleon and take the concepts from my book and apply it based on the culture that they're going after, based on the pain that they're going after, or that they've experienced. I went and spoke at Columbus Dispatch yesterday, and we just had an unfortunate downsizing in the organization, and they wanted me to come and lift people up, after they've been through that. So, some of them are feeling survivor's guilt, and, then you have the CIA where they're very serious. So a lot of the techniques that you may use to motivate employees or engage employees is not going to work at the CIA, probably not even allowed at the CIA. I'm surprised I even made it in the door after the background check. I mean, it was intense.
Well, you know what? I think it's good. I think we're all happy that the CIA does have an intense background check for all of us, because they do very, very important work for all of us. Now, okay, so you touched on something too that I want to talk about. One of the big topics, I would say in our nation, but also in the workplace, is the blending of the generations in the workforce. You've got the millennials, you've got the Gen Xers, you've got the baby boomers. All 3 seem to have their different working styles. And I know lots of corporations and lots of our listeners are wanting to know, how can we run a company and meld all these 3 together and still come out with some semblance of all being on the same ship? What kind of advice would you give a corporation like that?
That's a great question. And I love stereotypes, and yet I don't like stereotypes. And the reason is there's a lot of baby boomers who act like millennials. Probably myself is one of them. And, what I really encourage organizations to do is don't make any assumptions. Really understand your workforce, what they're trying to achieve, because at the end of the day, happy associates are productive associates. So if you are making sure that the associates are engaged in your workforce by making sure they're in the right job, by making sure they're valued, by making sure they're communicated to, by making sure that they understand the mission and their role, all those things drive engagement. And also, more importantly, how do they want and like to be rewarded and recognized. I ask my team every single year, because it changes, by the way, what motivates you? How would you like to be recognized? I get answers all the way from additional paid time off to more money to I want to leave every Friday at 3 for a happy hour. So, we look at how do we understand our workforce to best understand how do we meld them together and get the best of each person. Because I believe in diversity and I believe in making sure that we're getting the best out of every single person we hire and giving them the autonomy to show us their best. And, one of the things that my CEO did with myself is he has the philosophy, hire the talent and build the function around it. If you try to put people in a box, you may lose a lot of what they have to give. So the different generations offer so many different work ethics, different ethics that we need to have in order to have a great workplace. The young, exciting, millennials that have the creativity, they may want to work shorter hours with the baby boomers. They may want to be the steady state. We need them all, but it's really understanding how each of them can be engaged individually and then create the team culture.
I think you really hit the nail on the head, and something that rings true, I'm sure, with a lot of employers. And it's a very simple question to ask, but I'm sure something that people don't think about is asking your employees, what motivates you and how would you like to be recognized?
Right.
I know that's probably a very freeing question to ask, but also to answer. And again, you talk so much about culture and engagement, employee engagement, but I mean, that's literally asking them, hey, how can I get you more engaged? So I think that is a great takeaway for our listeners today. So let's change gears a little bit and talk about another topic that I know is very near and dear to your heart, and that's women in leadership. And I know that you have some thoughts on that and work-life balance. So I really want to ask you, Beth, about your own experience about being a woman in leadership and how you've kind of navigated that with also, I know, having a family and everything. So like I said, would love to hear your experiences on that.
It's interesting because, first of all, I feel very blessed to have had an amazing career, and I've had extreme support from both genders as leaders. But, I think society has caused us a lot of problems in this area, trying to define what having it all means for women. My spin is very different because many of us would not be able to have it all the way society has defined it. So I say we define what having it all means. So, it changes every step of our life and our career in dealing with raising with children or even raising dogs, with having a partner or just trying to maintain friendships or doing charitable work or community service work. The sooner women figure out what their all is and how they are currently living against that and what their definition is, the more we can start to fix this and be happier and more fulfilled. Because I really believe that, there's still some inequality. I actually went to a Women's Fund evening last night where it had a panel of women talking about still the inequality in pay between genders. And, I believe that it still is occurring, but I also believe some women use it as an excuse. I say, don't let it be an excuse. Go after it. Tell them what you want. And, don't get in your own way by putting that out there, because I do believe that there's an element of that. I actually love and support women. I am a mentor to many. I am always trying to help women succeed, but I'm also going to be brutally honest with them when they need to step it up and when they need to not play a victim, and they really need to define what that balance looks like for them. Because just like speaking at the Columbus Dispatch to all these folks who had many friends losing their job, and Victoria's Secret just announced 200 layoffs, if somebody was going to focus on their complete identity around their job and their title and being an executive or being a professional, what would they feel like after that's gone? So the point is, it's like live with no regrets. Constantly do a check in the mirror and say, what does my balance look like? Because you have to fight for that balance. But my experience has been, I mean, just like asking for the timeshare, you ask for what you want. The worst thing they could do is say no. But you also don't get in a cycle of working later to try to prove something. Work smarter, not harder. If you work until 5 and get your job done, get out. But if they see you work till 11, they're going to expect that every night, and then leaving at 5 is like, where are you going? So I think really look at what you're spending your time on and make sure it aligns with what you should be spending your time on in order to stay balanced.
Yeah, no, that's a great point and a point that's well made. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Beth Thomas, who is VP and Managing Director of Consulting Services at Sequent. To find more information out about Beth, you can visit our website, which is www.executivespeakersbureau.com/Beth Thomas, where you can find speaking video of Beth, as well as her speaking topics and her bio, and also contact information to get in touch with us about how to book Beth to come to your organization or to your association and do a speech. Beth, I want to take this a little bit deeper right now, and we talk about having a definition of success and not buying into what society's definition is of having it all. And I think that's really powerful thing. Now, especially for some of our younger listeners, they may be saying, hey, I don't know how to define happiness and having it all for myself right now. I'm just new in the working world, and I don't know what it is because all I've been doing is listening and taking things in my whole life. What steps or process would you recommend to one of these young listeners to finding out, hey, what is this definition of happiness and success for me?
That's a great question because I have a lot of women who actually ask that. How do I start? Because it's interesting. I will be speaking to hundreds of people, and I will ask the simple question. How many of you have ever sat down and written your definition of happiness? And out of, say, 300 people, I'll get maybe 10 people raising their hands. And it's interesting that it's so coveted to be a happy person, to have a happy life. You see so much about it. You know, Harvard is touting their number one class as Happiness 101. You see Berkeley, you see tons of books about it, mine being the best. And, you know, it's interesting that you have people that still don't do that. They don't sit down and write down what that definition is. If you don't know what the definition is, how are you going to try to achieve it? So I sit there and talk to them about not what you're skilled at, not what your job is, not what you're used to doing, but sit back and think about things that make you happy. Like when I think about a perfect job scenario, what does that look like? What are the things that I love doing at work? And create that perfect job scenario and think of how can I obtain more work that equals the things that I love to do? Can I get on a different project? Can I get on a different team? Can I look for a new job? The thing is, you've got to think about what brings you happiness. Same thing with having it all. If you wrote a pie and you start saying, I want to spend 20% of my time with friends, 40% at work, 20% with charitable organizations, and 20% with my pets, you know, then you say pie, okay, where is the pie and how I'm actually spending my time? And then you know what adjustments that you need to make and go after. It's very simple. You create a plan, and then you start trying to achieve the plan. But you have to understand what's the end in mind. What am I seeking to achieve?
That's good. So again, change gears one more time on you here, Beth. I know we're getting close to the end. So a lot of people listen to this podcast are speakers or aspiring to be a speaker. What would you say, because one of the things that's very key, and you've already hit on it, is knowing your audience who you're speaking to and being able to tweak your message to that audience. What's some of the homework that you do before your speech and some of the questions you ask to know your audience? And then how do you change your message to fit that audience?
Well, it's obviously as a speaker, you can't have like a different speech for every single thing that's completely redone, but you can make tweaks. So I always have a pre-speech conference call with the folks that I'm speaking to or who engaged us. And then I talk to them about what are some of the things that they've struggled with? So what's the pain in the organization? I talked to them about what would be some of the expectations that they would want to get from my speech. For example, if they were to say, Beth, you knocked it out of the park, what would I have achieved to get that? So I really just have a pre-conference call, and then I try to make adjustments, and I try to personalize it a little bit. So, for example, I have a couple pages that says, what makes you happy? And I ask them for pictures from their own organization. So I have pictures of company picnics and, tailgates and happy hours, and they love that. So you want to try to personalize the speech as much as possible, but also just finding out what they need from you and working really hard to try to get that. So I really try to, with every single speech, make sure that I'm giving them the value that they expect and more, and then some.
Beth, what has been your worst speaking experience?
Oh, well, that's really funny because according to me, I haven't had any.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Mean, I have, the funny thing is I really haven't had any experiences where I walked off and said, man, I bombed that. Now, they may say that, I've never really gotten that feedback. They may feel that. But, the funny thing is I'm very high energy. So I love to be motivational, and I really feed off the audience. So I have fun with them. I laugh with them. I'm interactive with them. So I would say, if it's a small crowd or if it's a very serious crowd, it just takes me a lot more energy to pull off what I normally do. And it's just me, pretty much dancing on the stage to try to get them to have energy. But, it's funny because I spoke to an IT organization for a very large retailer, and I was dreading it, thinking, oh my gosh, IT folks, I can say this because I used to work in IT, but I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so serious, and they're going to think I'm, just quacky. Because I hate when people think that the title happiness is trite. It's actually very powerful for folks to be happy. So being happy and engaged at work and all the statistics that come along with how that increases your bottom line and, your customer retention and employee retention. So I try to get people to think about how serious of a topic this is, although it's lighthearted in delivery. But even with those IT folks, man, I had them laughing, I had them engaged, and but I would say, so from a worse speaking engagement, it's really the smaller ones that don't they're forced to go there.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
All right, Beth. It is the time you've been waiting for. It is time to play 3 random questions. We're going to see how smart you really are. I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
Right.
Totally
Okay.
random. Beth does not know, has not gotten these on the front end, so we're going to test her knowledge. If you get 2 out of 3,
Wait, do I get prizes?
if you get 2 out of 3, you win. If you get 3 out of 3,
Okay.
you're a certified genius. All right.
Okay.
So
All right.
no
I'm in.
pressure. Okay. First question: what is the best time of day to have a first date? A lunch date or a dinner date?
A first date?
Yes, first date. Best time of day to have a first date. Lunch date or dinner date?
Dinner date.
Oh, that is correct. We're 1 for 1. Great. Okay, true or false question. In June 20th, 1789, the Estates General took the tennis court oath. Was this a pivotal moment in the beginnings of the French Revolution? True or false?
False.
Beth, I'm sorry, that's actually true. According to most historians, that
Gosh.
was... Yeah, sorry. All right, it's okay. Got a third question. No pressure at all here. Like I said, if you don't get this one, you lose. What is the best thing about living in Columbus, Ohio?
Not the weather. Not the Big Ten.
That is correct. We will give that to her. That is correct. Not the Big Ten.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Beth, congratulations.
Woo-hoo.
You are a winner. We will stick something in the mail to you, Bob. I don't know what we have, but we'll find something for
Find
everyone.
something.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. Beth, thank you so much for joining us. It's been amazing. I think I'm going to go work on my happiness plan this afternoon.
Good.
Actually, after I get off
Good.
work.
It's been fun.
That was our interview with Beth Thomas. If you want more information on Beth, her website is www.sequent.biz. You can also go on to the Executive Speakers Bureau website, www.executivespeakers.com/Beth Thomas, where you can find her bio, speech topics, video, and contact information for how to get her to your corporate event or association event or your women's event. Beth would love to do all of them and do a great job. We want to thank everyone so much for listening today. Especially thank you to my wonderful guest, Beth Thomas, and the information that she provided. We hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This was Stephen Kirkpatrick with Executive Speakers on Speakers. Looking forward to talking to you next time.